Hey guys, I'm back and jumping into more viewer requests. This one is from Josie Robitaille via John Foxhome YouTube channel. Check out the link hopefully there or in the description below. This is the Paley Fest first gathering of the fans. All right, next up on the docket is partnerships at Paley Fest 2006 with the first ever gathering of Supernatural fans.
I spent a long time on the X-Files and am offered a lot of scary television shows.
So there's a lot of X-Files back and forth.
And
So this
one
really
just
is
struck
kind
me
of
right
like...
away, especially when I finally saw the cut of the pilot, because it had those two things that I think you need to have a successful show like this. One is a great franchise, which is the engine that runs the show. The idea that the two brothers on the road trip with a very personal agenda. And the second thing, honestly, is casting and chemistry. And chemistry is something you can't manufacture. And these guys have it, and they're so great to write for, and they're so fun to write for.
Worth a try.
So I said, yeah.
Saw the pilot and really liked it a lot, and I think what the studio wanted was, after they saw it and it got picked up, and the studio at one point probably said to themselves, we're...
Just keep it. You can't get anything done.
This is what it's like to direct them, too. The studio said, well, we can't give $40+ million to Eric Kripke.
Yeah. Very true.
And let him run wild. So they said, what we need is, you know, some... This is so hard.
These people are very talented.
So they thought they needed some an experienced hand to guide the young man through these rocky waters. The young man, of course, felt, what do I need this old fart for?
No way.
And we met a number of times, and finally Eric got comfortable enough with me. It's interesting, because, I mean, we are sort of different generations, and we approach drama in kind of a different way.
Coming from different generations, you approach drama in a different way.
Well, I don't know if that's a generational thing, but I'm very...
Sober.
There's that, yeah. The plot work itself out given what the characters are going to do, and what I'm interested in the scenes is how, it drives the plot, but I'm most interested in how the characters react to it. The stories I do tend to get a little like this, but the character stuff is probably interesting. Eric really works very, very hard on the story's plot down and knows that once his plot is good, the character stuff will come naturally to that.
Yeah.
So we sort of go like this when we're in the room together.
He brings a depth and maturity of character, of just depth to the drama that I could not do. Me alone, like, is boogeyman. and like all of a sudden with him, like, we have a show where you have these characters that are psychologically rich and true, and Bob is behind. The show would not succeed at all without him. So.
Come on, give him a
You guys
kiss.
can do it.
I think that guy was struggling to figure out the words he wanted to say. He must be more of an internalized creative, clearly one of the directors. I don't know all these people yet. I'm still learning. In fact, honestly, I didn't even know what Eric Kripke looked like until like a more recent Supernatural special that I did with Missy. So, I mean, I'm still learning all of this stuff. I think it's really cool that they find ways to complement each other's strengths. That's really the best way to succeed in the entertainment industry, but in a creative endeavor at all. So kudos to them. And next, I am going to be watching this little part to the Paley Panel of 2016 titled Negotiating Gore with the Network.
Are there any stories about the show being too scary, like you do trade-offs with the network, like they say, well, you can have 2 seconds of this, bloody face if you do this or that?
Yeah, I mean, you get into really strange discussions of, can we not see the decapitated head roll? And then you start arguing about, well, can you do a half a turn? Say, okay, you can do a half a turn, but the blood gush can't be for 2 seconds. It has to be for 1 second. So those are ongoing discussions, but actually the network's been great. We really pushed the envelope.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really did. I can't
They
believe...
let us get away with more than I thought they would.
Yeah.
When Yeah, the gun rig.
The episode Nightmare was the first and only time we've ever had issues with standards and practices. And there's a scene where Dean gets his brains blown out in Nightmare, and we actually rigged it, and we thought like
The audience is like, what?
The rig was awesome.
Yeah, you rigged it so the shot actually goes into his forehead, and the blood explodes out the back onto the wall. And we were like, haha, this is our lead,
That is
and we're just
practical.
But and Network was like, no way.
This giant backpack filled with like grapes and corn syrup, and it was this tube just kind of coming right out of the back and from the head on, and I had a little button in my hand, and they just yelled action, and we timed it with a gunshot, and I hit the button and gave a reaction, and the whole wall went splat. You know, By the way, it was an awesome rig, but then they ended up having to cut to just the splat, and then back to me.
Back to him with the hole.
Yeah.
But the director of that episode is here tonight, sitting next to my wife as it is.
Phil Segrisha. Really job.
And when I looked at those dailies, and I called Phil, and I said, he said, how are they? How are they? Because Kim can tell you, all those directors are so self-confident that we don't need constant approval or anything. And he said, I said, they're great, Phil, but what the hell are you doing? And he said, well, they'll look at that and they'll give me all the rest of the stuff. So.
We used to play a game with BSP, Broadcast
Shoot for the
Standards and
Moon.
Practice, where we
Land
cut
Amongst
the
the
show and we
Stars.
cut it way too violent. So then they
Yeah.
come and they go, well, you have to take out 4 frames of that shot.
Yeah.
And you go, oh, God. Not 4 frames. So you take it out, but you always knew that you didn't need those 4 frames.
Yeah, asking for permission
Kind of stack the deck.
is harder than asking for forgiveness.
You're better off to just put everything to the nth degree what you want to put in, and then see what they let you get away with. It's kind of how you manage people in general in terms of trying to get away with things. You just kind of have to put it all out there and then work your way down from there, chip away at it, I think it's incredible the stuff that they've been able to actually get into this show, because Buffy, for example, that was at the time probably one of the most violent pieces of television ever, which is insane because, the stuff that they do in Supernatural is like, what? Every time they have one of those gruesomely violent scenes on this show, I keep thinking, I get that for Cinemax or HBO or Showtime. This was network TV. This was not cable premium, So it's just wild that they get away with it, especially on a network that's not supposed to be TVMA. It's made for teenagers. So that's pretty nuts to me that they consistently kept getting away with more and more. I'm sure it had a lot to do with the ratings. It had a lot to do with the fan following, and a lot to do with just them pushing it as far as they can, and then the network kind of having no choice but to be like, whatever, I guess this is as close as you can. Rules change as the majority of people go along with changing them. I still want to give props to Joss Whedon for introducing any kind of severe violence, even close to this, on network television. And he had to dust the vampires. The only reason why that even took place was because he wanted to make sure that the network knew that these were monsters, that they were not people. So when they get stabbed in the heart, or their neck snapped or whatever, or cut off, they're monsters. They're not people. Which of course, as the seasons in that show progressed, they kind of made them a little more humanized, but at that point they had already gotten away with what they'd gotten away with. You just kind of have to get your foot in the door, So yeah, that was, I bet, really rough for them, how they had to consistently keep going. Well, can we just push this a little further? And well, what if we just do this? And then they get as close as they can. And it was enough that eventually, it's almost a natural transition where the network almost didn't even notice because it was so normal to them at a certain point. So yeah, that's funny. This was Super Naturally. Who would ever use adorable puppies to get people to want to like our channel, subscribe, and stay notified?
And maybe even go over to Patreon and become a subscriber there and support us if we watch Winchester.
Support these little cutie
Oh,
boys.
to buy them treaties and such. Oh.